So let me introduce Wendy Schwartz, who's been here before. She's our Planning and Program Development Manager, and she's our lead staff person with me on homeless issues. So what we wanted to do today was give you just kind of an overview of what the department and the city has been working on over the last several years as part of the development of the homeless action plan for the city. There's a lot of information in this presentation, so we're happy to provide you more information on any topic and also come back on any specific topic. We will be coming back to you later this summer on our homeless strategy also. So this is kind of an overview of what's going on. We'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. Also, if we can't answer them tonight, we can bring them back at your next meeting for the next agenda. So some things we want to talk about today is just the background on the city's involvement in homelessness, the Boulder County 10-year plan to address homelessness, our Boulder Homeless Strategy and Action Plan is currently in development, city support for homeless services, and the successes between the 10-year plan and the city, what we've had in addressing homelessness. And so just a little bit of background. This goes back issues that need to be addressed around homelessness and folks who lose their housing. This goes back at least a decade. In the early 2000s, we really started a slide into a recession which really grew to 2008. Kind of in tandem with that was also this ongoing devolution of federal and state funding for a variety of human services, mental health, which really kind of devolved to local government responsibility in local communities. And that's really where the rubber hits the road on a lot of things, because those are our local communities. During this time, federal policy around how we fund and what services are provided to homeless families and individuals shifted. And that was the result of best practice research and efforts that really lent themselves to more permanent solutions. Because the most significant issue, obviously, facing homeless families and individuals is lack of housing. And securing permanent housing and permanent supportive housing is the most effective solution. And how rapidly and quickly you can move people into permanent housing really helps determine long-term outcomes. And that is the best practice. We also want to maintain a safety net of services. And so the focus from federal policy and what's evolving as our local policy is also maintaining that safety net of emergency services, while there's a very strong focus and emphasis on permanent solutions as opposed to emergency services. So I put review of camping ordinance up here because I know that's a concern for some members of the community. I know it's come up in your public hearings. City Council reviewed our camping ordinance in February of 2010. It was of significant concern to the community. This was about a year process in reviewing that camping ordinance, and City Council determined that they did not want to overturn the camping ordinance. This was in February of 2010, so if you go to the city's website, your City Council meetings, February 2010, you will see the complete background on that. I put that up here just as a reminder. This review of the camping ordinance is not part of our work going forward, because we have heard from council on that. So just want to give you a couple of slides around data and information on homelessness in Boulder. So this is 3-year average data from the Point in Time survey, which the Metro Denver Homeless Initiative sponsors and coordinates each year. Now, the Point in Time survey is conducted in January of each year, and it's a snapshot through survey, community survey of homelessness in the community. It is not by any means a definitive study on the numbers, but it is a snapshot. The snapshot has remained relatively stable over time. Again, this is not an exact picture, but just what happens on January 23rd of each year. And so what you will see is this rough breakout of families with children, veterans, those who are unsheltered, young people, age 55 plus, those who have been on the street for a very long time that would be chronically homeless. So it just gives you a snapshot of what that looks like.
So, do you mind if we just
Sure.
spend a second here? So this graph tells us that the largest group is homeless families. 280 in families with children.
Well, if compared to these other groups, then yes, it can look that way. But if you look at the 280 compared to the 646, usually where we come out is like slightly under half of our homeless population being families with children. And the other thing I will say is that if you add these up, they might not add up exactly right, because you could, for instance, you can be a veteran and you can also be part of a family of children. So, and so there's overlap in these groups. It's just to try and give a little bit of an idea of some of the different groups within the larger group.
But you could say that roughly half of the population of homeless that are surveyed through the PIT are families with children.
Do you want these questions now?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Is the 280, is it 280, not families, it's 280 people who belong to a, okay.
That's correct.
So a 4-year-old would be one count in that.
That's correct.
Right, in that number. Okay, thank you.
Reasons for homelessness. This is pretty stable over time also. Loss of employment, cost of housing, family breakup, mental illness, substance abuse, domestic violence. And being all pretty significant factors. Now, housing costs in Boulder, as we know, are housing in general is a pretty significant issue. The availability and affordability of housing is a pretty significant issue here. Vacancy rates for apartments, for rentals, vacancy rates are very low and rental costs are very high. And we'll be talking about some of the things that we've been doing in the city and regionally to help address that. Those are issues which might not be as significant in other communities across the country and other communities in Colorado.
Real quick, do you have a gender breakdown? Just looking at domestic violence, we can assume that these affect men and women differently. Do you have a gender breakdown?
I do not know that off the top of my head. I'd have to check with NDHI to go back and see if they have that crossed out.
Go back one slide. Just a quick question about this. So, how long does someone have to be homeless to make it into one of these categories?
Well, if with the exception of the chronically homeless, then it can be any amount of time. Chronically homeless, there's a specific federal definition around that. And so to be qualified to be chronically homeless, you have to have been homeless for more than 1 year or have had 4 episodes in the last 3 years of homelessness. And you also have to have a condition that is severe enough to be considered disabled, and that can be a mental health or behavioral health condition. So not just physical health.
So in all these other categories, you have been homeless 3 out of 1 day. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about Boulder County's 10-year plan to address homelessness. With this change and this movement at the federal level, a policy shift toward moving toward at least federal resources being allocated toward more permanent solutions, including permanent housing. Many communities across the country are developing plans to address homelessness. We know that homelessness is a regional issue. This is not a jurisdictional boundary issue. The homeless population is mobile, and housing cannot be addressed, particularly in Boulder County, or the city of Boulder, cannot be addressed just in one community. So Boulder County coordinated a countywide plan to address homelessness. And some of the key goals, and this was in 2008 when it was approved, the process really started in 2006, and was approved in 2008 by the consortium of cities, the city of Boulder, city of Longmont, Boulder County, United Way, to try to come together in a coordinated way to at least address it regionally. The key goals in the 10-year plan are to prevent individuals and families from becoming homeless. That's a key strategy. So prevention is one strategy. Continue to provide temporary shelter, alternative housing support services for those who are temporarily homeless. To provide permanent housing and supportive services for the chronically homeless. Permanent supportive housing, you can also heard as housing first. Develop and improve systems to coordinate and support efficient and effective plan implementation for these goals and promote public awareness and advocacy. The key strategy in the 10-year plan for addressing chronic homelessness is the development of more permanently supportive housing units to move people directly from the streets into permanent housing, because we know long-term that is the most cost-effective strategy and it's the most beneficial for clients as well. Sure.
Is supportive housing with support services?
Yes.
Okay.
An example of that is 1175 Lee Hill at the corner of Lee Hill and Broadway. There's 31 units there that were built by our housing authority or housing partners. Those 31 units are permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless individuals. So the countywide plan, it's a fairly high policy level document. There are a number of strategies that are in that plan, and if you go to the website buildinglivablecommunities.org, the 10-year plan is there, and you can see all of the specific strategies. There's numerous strategies countywide to implement those goals. So over several years, it became clear that the county, relative to addressing homelessness, is a pretty wide territory. The two service and housing centers, the city of Boulder and the city of Longmont, are two very different communities. City of Longmont has a Longmont housing outreach team, which was developing specific strategies for Longmont, and we had some unique challenges here in Boulder, and the city council felt like the city needed a strategy which complemented the 10-year plan, but maybe was more specific to our community. So a city-specific homelessness plan to complement the 10-year plan and focus on our high priority community issues. So for example, what that might be is we have 3 key emergency services providers, the Boulder Shelter for the Homeless, Boho, and Bridge House. They're located in the city of Boulder, and how can we help support those 3 organizations in creating a coordinated, integrated continuum of service for our residents. So we're in the process of drafting a homeless strategy framework and a homeless action plan that might be a little more specific to complement the 10-year plan. based on best practice, federal policy, this shift in federal policy direction, success in other communities, particularly around housing first, 10-year plan goals, and stakeholder feedback. We are developing a homeless action plan.
And what's the coordination with Longmont? Just being aware of what they're doing, or is there actual coordination?
It's really just being aware of what they're doing. The overlap between, other than the mobility of our homeless population, the overlap with Longmont is that the Boulder Shelter for the Homeless is a county-wide shelter. So we have specific day services and day shelter in our Day Resources Center here. They also have similar services in Longmont, because traveling from Longmont to Boulder on a daily basis doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But our shelter is a county-wide shelter, so Longmont residents are served by the shelter in Boulder. So what is the homeless strategy, and what's the action plan? So the framework, the guiding principles and goals of our framework is to complement the 10-year plan to prevent homelessness, to make sure that we provide temporary shelter and supportive services, but to focus on long-term housing and support services as solutions, and to improve services systems to support efficient and effective services and outcomes. And that means implementing some strategies, including coordinated intake, assessment, and case management among our emergency service providers. Reduce the redundancies in the system, have more quick and rapid response to those folks who need help and assistance, and really measure how well are we helping people. So I use the example of if John Doe walks through the doors of the shelter one night, where is John a year later or 5 years later? How have we helped to maximize his personal plan, whatever that might be, and be able to report on that and measure that. And right now, we can't do that. So those are the guiding principles for framework. The action plan are strategies to achieve those goals. So one thing that's been happening over the last couple of years is we've been implementing a lot of strategies as opportunities have presented themselves, along with really figuring out what's the best homeless strategy for the city. So there's kind of like these parallel processes. So Wendy's going to talk now about, well, what are those strategies?
Hello, good evening. There are 5 strategy areas within the draft homeless action plan, and so I'm going to go through them and then some examples of the types of initiatives that are either in progress or planned in those different areas. And this is something that can really be a living, breathing plan as we go on, because there might be other great ideas for strategies to work toward the goals that come up, and the community would be able to add those as they go. The first strategy area is around strengthening regional partnerships, and the reason this is important is really just that we're not an island on homelessness, and we really wouldn't want to act like one, because there are a lot of ways that we can leverage other funding, other efforts that are both throughout the county and also throughout the broader Metro Denver region. So rather than reinventing our own wheel each time, we can maximize those opportunities. And so some examples here of the strategies within that area are working with other funders and regional and local partners to really identify the barriers that there are to people trying to seek services and stability in our system, and what resources are needed and how we can collaborate on those resources to implement system improvements. The Metro Mayor's Caucus has also been very active in this issue. They have a homeless subcommittee, and our mayor, Mayor Applebaum, is part of that subcommittee, and they've developed goals as in partnership as a regional collaborative. And some of those include the ones that are listed here, really investing in regional resources to maximize impact. In the case of some communities, that's really just even starting to get staff involved and focused on that. And there's a whole continuum of involvement. Raising public awareness of homelessness as a regional issue, and that includes really involving partners, and sometimes partners that maybe haven't always been consistently traditional, such as the fourth bullet there's a landlord campaign that we'll talk about in a little bit, but different groups of people are really important to be aware and be partners in the issues. And then of course increasing housing resources. Other regional partnerships that we're involved in, the consortium of cities, so that's something that is Boulder County cities, and there's kind of an exciting project that's being discussed with that entity that we'll talk about in a moment, and just actively engaging in the opportunities that come up and really showing leadership in regional homeless reduction efforts that come up. Of course, the second strategy area is not surprising to any of you, that really people who are homeless need housing, and so it's important for us to try to increase housing options as much as possible, and options can be actual units, and it can be options for people to have support, such as rental assistance or vouchers to get into units. So a few items that are within this area, there is something called the Boulder Broomfield Consolidated Housing Plan, and that is a regional plan that sets out priorities for some federal housing funding we get, and so working with our partners in housing to look at opportunities to maximize homeless housing opportunities. Strengthening those landlord relationships for housing retention and incentives, because we really want to be able to work with landlords wherever possible to keep people in housing. It's better if they don't ever become homeless in the first place. And also to get them back into housing after they've lost it. And then addressing some of the barriers to maximizing federal housing resources. So for example, housing vouchers. There's a certain number of restrictions on how they can be used that sometimes make them challenging to use locally. Supporting community initiatives to develop housing for the homeless. So there's lots of different groups that have come together with proposals and can come together with proposals, and we want to support that. And addressing any land use barriers to developing or acquiring housing that would be beneficial to this population. The third strategy area is improving local service integration. And Karen talked a little bit about this, but it doesn't sound very exciting when you say improve local service integration, but really when you have what's traditionally happened in communities all across the country is there's a bunch of different programs at a bunch of different places. People are on a bunch of different housing waiting lists, and it's not coordinated, and people are kind of going round robin around communities and regions. And once you have a concerted effort to really integrate those systems, have a single entry point, even if it's a single virtual entry point, share data, combine case management so that people don't have 5 different case managers, then it really makes a big difference for how well your system can serve people and what their experience is in the system. So that's what all of these strategies in this area are about. And then we also have some great programs that have started that we want to strengthen. So our municipal court system, when they have folks who are homeless, who are coming into contact with law enforcement in our local court system, they look for opportunities to refer them to Bridge House and other services and work with those providers so that people can really move on from negative situations they've entered into. Our Boulder Police Department has a partnership with Mental Health Partners so that there are mental health specialists that can go along on appropriate calls and get that person really into treatment rather than just into the criminal justice system. One of the things that we have found is that even though there are actually a lot of great things going on in the community, first of all, that we'll share some of them with you, and people who are in the community might not know that. They might just have a negative interaction with one individual and or see something that they think represents what's going on in the community, and so we realized we need to do a better job of educating people both about all the different types of people who are homeless, and that maybe it's not just the picture that people might have in their minds of what homelessness is. There's lots of different reasons and circumstances that lead to the situation, and there is a lot being done in the community that's really helping people. And then the fifth strategy area is preventing homelessness, and really that goes along with a wide variety of programs that are supported to help people out of poverty and keep them out of homelessness in the first place. The 10-year plan to address homelessness that Karen talked about earlier, since that was adopted, there's been really a lot of progress made in a lot of areas of the plan. There are many more warming center spaces throughout the county, including here in Boulder, than when the plan first started. So that is generally a partnership with faith-based communities, and so if you can't get into the shelter that night, then you have another opportunity to sleep in a warm place in the winter. There's been capacity added in transitional housing for approximately 150 individuals and families countywide. More than 200 permanent housing options added. That's both units and vouchers. Amy, do you have a?
Yeah, can you define transitional housing? How long can people stay in transitional housing?
Generally, it's up to 2 years. It does depend on the program. There are some programs that have shorter windows depending on the program design, but usually the outer boundary is about 2 years. A lot more countywide dialogue on land use and planning barriers. That's one thing the 10-year plan board is spearheading.
I might add to that, the Longmont planning director is convening this, at the request of the 10-year plan board, has convened this county-wide planners group to really look at how, or what are the land use or zoning barriers that are in the different communities that really prevent the development of housing that would benefit homeless families and individuals. And that might be whatever ordinances or zoning barriers there may be in the development of congregate housing or SROs or that type of thing. And the results of that process would help inform what recommendations communities might want to bring forward to amend local ordinances.
There is a pilot we've been participating in called the 25 Cities Pilot, and that is a regional coordinated entry system. So the Metro Denver region, which is 7 Metro Denver counties, including Boulder County, are part of this. And the idea is, instead of having a bunch of different housing lists that people bounce around, having one 7-county regional housing list and having one assessment tool that everyone assesses people for housing on, so that it's kind of a level playing field. And really that's been beneficial to Boulder County because we're able to reach outside of our boundaries to access some resources for our people. The consortium of cities that I mentioned earlier, they are considering now a permanent supportive housing study, and so that's looking at really what's needed across the county, what type of permanent supportive housing, where, how many units, and the city of Boulder has approved funding to contribute to that, and some of the other communities have as well. And so that in process of being developed. The Denver Foundation is spearheading a very interesting campaign called a Public Will Building campaign. They actually did polling, and if you go on the Denver Foundation website, if you're interested, you can read about what their polling of the 7-county metro region was like. But they were essentially asking people about their perceptions of homelessness and what they might be willing to support. And as a result, the Denver Foundation has put out an RFA for communities to apply for technical assistance and support in implementing their own local public will building campaign. And so the 10-year plan board is leading a Boulder County application for that technical assistance. And here in the city of Boulder, in the past few years, the Bridge House Resource Center has opened up, and so that is a kind of one-stop shop concept. It gives people an opportunity to go into the resource center and access everything from employment counseling, substance use groups. The VA comes there sometimes. Our probation officers come there to talk about issues that people might be trying to clear up legally. There's a lot of different types of programs and resources that people can access in one place. The Municipal Court Bridge House Partnership that I mentioned earlier, the EDGE program partnership between the police department and mental health partners. 1175 Lee Hill, that was a really big deal when it opened up this fall, and 31 chronically homeless people moved in. As a side note, in our work with the municipal court staff, they've said that some of the folks who were their frequent flyers, really who were getting a lot of municipal violations, they moved into 1175 Lee Hill in the fall, and no problems. That's really, these were people who were getting multiple citations every year, and now they're not, because they've been able to stabilize in this housing. So it's a really great success story.
So those folks are not being ticketed because they're no longer doing other illegal activity. It's not just.
Yeah, there's a wide variety of violations that people were getting cited for, whether some of them might have been public intoxication. They might, there's a wide variety of issues that people were coming across, and what we know about permanent supportive housing is that when people are able to stabilize their housing situation, then they can start to deal with some of the other issues that they're facing in their lives.
And we have, in the community, we've had for a number of years, 24 other permanent supportive housing units. They're scattered site, they're not all in one location, but a couple of years ago, an assessment was done of what the 5-year outcomes were for those folks, and the number of contacts with the criminal justice system, the police, emergency room, dropped pretty significantly over the course of 5 years. So it's not as though everyone in 1175 Lee Hill are not getting any citations, but the progress was pretty apparent immediately.
And is that 100% full right now?
Yes. Ready to Work. There's some of you are familiar with the Ready to Work program, but that is a program through Bridge House where people are given the opportunity to work their way back toward employment. It's transitional employment, and so they have a couple of contracts with the city actually for things like landscaping. They have a catering business, and so people who are ready to take that next step toward employment can get into that program and start with employment there and then transition to mainstream employment. So this is a program that has had limited capacity up until now because there was not dedicated housing as you might imagine, it's somewhat difficult to be employed and get up and go to work when you don't have a stable place to sleep at night. And so one great thing that's about to open this summer is ready-to-work transitional housing units, and that's going to allow them to triple the amount of people who are able to be in that transitional employment program. And that's something both 1175 Lee Hill and that ready-to-work transitional housing have been supported by the city.
And where is that located?
The new transitional housing is at, I believe the address is 4747 Table Mesa.
You're 55.
The BOHO has added additional summer shelter options, and so they, in the past year or so, have opened a women's specific sheltering, rotating faith-based sheltering option that 25 women can occupy year-round. In addition, they have something called the residence shelter, and that's for people with a longer history in the community who have a record for good behavior at the warming centers during the winter. And so there's 40 slots in that in a rotating faith-based setting for those folks year-round.